Faith, though tested, does not fail. The chief point about faith is that we should not regard the promises of mercy which the Lord offers us as true only outside ourselves but not within us. Instead, we should receive them into our hearts and make them our own. From the act of receiving them there comes confidence, confidence which Paul in another place calls peace, although someone may prefer to think of peace as deriving from confidence. Such peace spells security for the conscience, bringing it rest and joy when faced with God's judgment. Without peace, the conscience is bound to be extraordinarily troubled and almost torn apart, unless forgetting God and itself, it goes to sleep for a short time. I say short advisedly, for conscience does not long enjoy such wretched oblivion without straightway being stung and cut to the quick by God's judgment, the memory of which recurs hour by hour. In short, the genuine believer is the man who, assured with firm conviction that God is a propitious and kindly Father to him, looks to his goodness for all things, and who, resting on the promises of his goodwill, awaits his salvation with never a doubt, even as the Apostle says, keeping faith to the end and glorying in our hope. By these words he shows that no one can truly hope in God who does not confidently boast that he is an heir of the kingdom of heaven. The genuine believer, I repeat, is the one who, relying on the assurance of his salvation, dares unflinchingly to defy the devil and death, as the Apostle explains in the conclusion which he draws in Romans. I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor principalities, neither powers nor things present nor things to come will be able to part us from the love which God has for us in Jesus Christ. Accordingly, the Apostle does not consider the eyes of our mind to be truly enlightened until we behold the hope of the eternal inheritance to which we are called. As he everywhere teaches, we do not really understand God's goodness unless we find in it our full assurance. It may be objected that what believers experience is very different, because in acknowledging God's grace to them, they are not only disturbed and assailed by doubts as usually happens, but are also sometimes grievously dismayed and frightened by the fierce trials which threaten to undermine them. That kind of thing hardly seems consistent with the certainty of faith, as we have described it. So we must resolve this difficulty if we want the teaching which we have outlined above to remain unaltered. In teaching that faith must be certain and assured, we do not envisage a certainty untouched by doubt, nor a sense of security which is exempt from all worry. On the contrary, we maintain that believers have to do perpetual battle with their own lack of trust. The last thing we want to do is to set their conscience down in some peaceful retreat, safe from any storm. Nevertheless, in whatever way they are assailed, we deny that they will fall away or depart from the sure trust which they have once and for all placed in God's mercy. This will be more easily grasped if we recall the division between spirit and flesh which we discussed elsewhere, and which is readily apparent here. Thus, the believer's heart feels this division within it, being in part full of the joy of knowing God's goodness, and in part stung with bitterness at the thought of its plight. In part, it rests on the promise of the gospel, and in part it trembles at the sight of its own wickedness. In part it joyfully takes hold of life, and in part it dreads death. This difference arises from the imperfect nature of faith, in that, throughout this present life, we do not attain that height of bliss when, purged of all distrust, we have within us fullness of faith. Such is the source of that battle within us, when the distrust which remains in the flesh rises to attack and overthrow faith. At this point I may be asked, if doubt like this is mixed with certainty in the believer's heart, does it not come down to this, that faith is not a sure and clear knowledge of God's will, but something dark and confused? My answer to that is no. For however torn we may be by conflicting thoughts, it does not follow that we find ourselves parted from faith. If we are now and then assailed by unbelief, it does not follow that we are cast down into its pit. If we are badly shaken, it does not mean that we stumble and fall. For the battle always ends with faith triumphing over these trials, though when beset by them, it seems to be imperiled.